Gordon, the phrase aesthetic cognitivism seems to be in vogue now. You used it in first edition of your book, Philosophy of the Arts, almost 20 years ago. So what did that term mean then, and how has it evolved, and what does it mean today?
Well, what it meant for me then, and the reason I used it was trying to capture the idea that there are things to be learned from artworks, that if you want to put it a little more pretentiously, art has things to teach us, not merely to entertain us, not merely to move us, but it does have things to teach us. So that was the aesthetic cognitivism. That is a label, if you like, for that contention. And not everybody accepts that, and certainly all of these views, of course, go through cycles. But when I was first writing that book, I think aesthetic cognitivism was not a widely used term, and it didn't capture what most people would have claimed. I think most people were thinking of art as primarily expressive, expressive of some sort of feeling, reaction, emotion, and it might be, and of course Tolstoy is a great theorist of emotion in art, and it's most famous. So most people thought, no, art's supposed to move us. I create this in order to express what I feel, to move you to feel something like I feel. So it was all within this emotive framework. And aesthetic cognitivism was trying to move away from that and say, no, artworks, in fact, I wanted to say, artworks at their most significant have things to show us and teach us and all those cognitive notions.
So you're using the term in terms of what art can do. It's the cognitivism is how the art affects our cognition.
Correct.
But a lot of the use of the term today is quite the reverse. It says that how can you, by understanding cognition, can you then explain art? So it draws the arrow in exactly the opposite direction.
But that, I want to say, is coming from the psychological side. So
Sure.
Coming from the philosophical side is rather different.
But it's the same term?
It is the same term, but
That's confusing.
well, a still more widely used term is cognitive science.
Sure, but,
So
but
cognitive
that's the
science
bigger area.
has exactly the same question. So you could say, except I'd have to change the language a little bit, you could say scientific cognitivism is the idea that science is ultimately productive of knowledge and understanding. Not everybody has believed this. Some instrumentalists have believed, no, it's to do with practicality. So you could use that term, scientific cognitivism, and then you might come along and say, but the cognitive scientists are thinking differently. They're saying it's the other way around, our cognitive faculties feed science. And so there's that same difference. But I think it is a difference between the philosophical and the psychological.
So the term has some ambiguity to it.
It has.
And so on the one hand, it is what art does to our mental faculties. On the other hand, it's by studying the science of our mental faculties that we can try to explain the art.
Yes, although if I was being harsh, I would say that
You may not think that's a legitimate enterprise, but that's what they think. They think it is.
Yes.
They think it is.
I hesitate to say it's not a legitimate enterprise. I
was exaggerating.
I just want
to aggravate you.
Raise this little question. If you take that approach, are you sure that you are explaining art as opposed to explaining it away?
Yeah,
and that's what I'm coming from the philosophical side that is going to say,
I may agree with you. What I'm trying to do now is just understand what the term means and what it means to different people.
Yeah.
I'm not arguing one way or another. That's for another time. I just want to understand the usage of the term, and I think we have a dual usage of it, and I think that could add to some confusion in people's minds.
Yes, it could do, and no doubt it has. I think, though, that people live with these alternative uses because they believe, hope, that there can be comparatively enriching collaboration,
Okay.
exchange. And certainly the people I know who are interested in what I just call the neurophysiology of the aesthetic, they see themselves in cognitive science, and they think that we will throw light on art and the aesthetic by understanding better how the brain apprehends certain things. And I stay open-minded as to how far and to what extent this can cooperate or interconnect with the philosophical doctrine of aesthetic cognitivism.